Hello everyone, this is the seventh video in the series for Access 2007-2010, and I'm hoping that I can just add and give you some more ideas of how you can use some of the tools of Access to solve some problems that you come across. So I'm still using the same examples from the previous video, which is I just show you the relationships. So I've got customer list, I've got employee list, I'm taking orders and things like that. So it's not that crucial to understand this, because I just need to show you some of the elements. So in my customer list, I have these different countries, US and Canada. So say for example, I wanted to create a query by which I can move all the Canadian customers to a separate table called table CA customer. So before you do that, you need to make sure that you create a new table using the table design. Give it any field name and save it, because the query will actually replace all the fields for you at first. Okay, so I click on customer list, create query wizard, simple query. I click OK. I add all the fields. Because I had clicked on it, I can see it listed here, and you can always remove the fields you don't want. Click next, and I'm going to choose modify, and just for the name I'll just give something query move CA. Click finish. So in the country I can type CA because I'm looking for that, and I'm going to use the option make table. Now what this one does, what the make table does is it will delete everything that's in that table. Okay, so I'm going to click make table, and I'm going to choose that table that I want to move to. So that's why you have to have the table created. Click OK, and if I hit run, it's going to say, hey, are you sure? It's going to delete everything that's in that query. I say yes. It says it's going to paste 3 rows in that table. So now when I double click here, now you see I've got 3 rows listed here. So I'm going to close it. Okay. So, but you got to be careful that you don't keep using this, because you're going to remove all of your information from that table. Now, where can this be useful? So say for example, I had a question about this, that you are into taking inventories and you are into figuring out what's missing. So you went to this location A and you did an inventory. Now a year later you go back to that location and you want to do a second inventory. So before you do that, you can create a new table with a new date or something, and now move all the records from that table to this new table. So you have 2 copies. All right, and I'll talk about this as I go forward. So now this is done, but now next time around I don't want to make a table. I want to just append it to that table, right? So next time around I don't want to keep on replacing all my records. I only want to append it. But before you append it, you need to make sure that those records are deleted, because my customer list still has that CA record. So if I keep it in there, when I use the append, it will append those 3 records back to the customer table. Okay, so you need to make sure that if I wanted, I could use the delete option. Now this will delete any records which has the word CA in it. So if I run it, it says, are you sure? It says yes. Now let's see if I double click on this. You see it's removed the CA. Okay. Now usually you want to save all of these queries separately. I'm just trying to do it in one table to just explain to you how this can work. Okay. Now just in that example that I was talking about with the inventory management, this delete button can be useful. So what I can do is, in that second new table which has all the duplicate records, I can create a query based on this new table, and say there was a field called barcode, a field where I'm entering the number of the product number or the barcode number. Now in that category I can just put a parameter query, like I can just type in here and I can say what barcode. So whenever this query will be run, when I double click on that delete query, it will prompt me with that question, what barcode, and then I enter that. If it finds the match, it's just going to delete that. So once you go through this whole process, your new record will have, this new table will have all the missing equipments in your inventory. So that takes care of everything for you. What you came there to figure out, you want to find out what's missing. So you can use these different make table first to just make a duplicate table. And then you can use the delete option to just start deleting. Now make sure you create another query based on that new table. And whenever you need it, you could actually use the append option. Append means I already have the table and I just need to add these new records that have been added to that old table to the new one. So that's the way you use it. Now the update option is where it will update a field in that record. So I'm just going to click on the update option and say, for example, country. I wanted to update it to USA. So the criteria is US. Say I want to change US to USA. I hit run and let's see. Double click on that. There it is. US has turned to USA. So again, you can use these options to make your job easy, and you can have all these queries that you can have it saved, so they will be listed here with appropriate names that you can use. So I can just close this. I'm just going to repeat another way the same ideas that I've just talked about. So if I go to this table customer, I've got these 3 Canadian countries listed here. Now I want to move them back to this table, the customer list. So I'm going to click on it, go to create query wizard, simple query, and add all the fields. Next, and I'm just going to call it query move CA. Modify, and I'm going to say append it to the customer list. Click OK. Now I don't even need to put the word CA because all the records are CA. And now I'm going to hit run and say yes. And I'm going to close this and say yes. So now if I look at my customer list, I have the CA records back in there. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and delete all the CA customers here so that I don't need them anymore there. So I can go back to create query wizard, simple query, add all the fields. I'm just going to call this query delete CA. I'm doing this because I want to show you about macros, how you can have one macro do multiple things. So I'm going to click finish. And this time I want to use the delete option. And I can even just type a criteria if you want, or you can even put a parameter query. Even if I didn't, it will delete everything. So I'm just going to click run. And I'm going to close this. Now if I look at this, there are no more in there. All of them have been moved around. Now for example, if I have 2 different queries, now I don't want to go around doing these 2 things all the time. So what I want to do is I want to automate the steps that whenever I run a macro, it should look into the customer table, move the CA countries into the customer list, and then delete those from those records. So, and there are always different ways of doing it, but I just want to introduce you to the ideas of macros here. So let's create. So under the create tab, I've got the option to create macro. Okay. So I can click it. Now what do macros do? They're going to automate the process. So I want to do is I want to first run the query move CA and then delete the query, the CA one. So I can click here and I can choose open query. Now it's asking me which query. So I'll say, alright, first you need to run move CA. Now you got to be careful that you don't delete first and then move. You want to move first. Now I'm going to click add the plus sign because I want to do a second one, and I'll say Open query again, LMNO, and I want it to now delete it. So you get the idea that you can do a whole lot of stuff here if you wanted to. And I can click save. Now I can call it move delete macro. Again, try to be as meaningful. I can close it. So if I just scroll down here on the left hand side, you see there is that macro on the bottom, move delete. When I double click it, it's going to say, "Hi, sure, I'm going to move some records from that first table to the customer list." I say yes. Now it's saying it didn't find anything because there is nothing in there. And now it says, "Are you sure you want to run a delete query?" And it says there is nothing to be found because this table is right now empty. If there was a table in here with the customer country CA, it would have done the job. Now just to test it, I'm just going to go back to this table Canada customer and just put up something. Company 2, for example, Amir, and I'm just going to put Canada CA in the country. I'm going to close it. Let's see now what happens if I double click on this macro. So it's about to run it. I say yes. It says, "Hey, I'm going to move one record." Yes. Now it's going to run the delete. Say yes. And it says one row will be deleted. Let's see if this company, so it's not there anymore. And table customer list, there's my name. So it's moved it. So this is the way the macros work. And I'm going to show you some more functionality behind this macro. And before I show you the next part, in which I'm going to show you a little bit of special functionality in forms, I want to show you in the query wizard you can actually create find duplicates query wizard. And you can read the information on the left hand side. This wizard creates a query that finds records with duplicate field values in single table, and unmatched query wizards. And anytime you had questions, try to use the help function. It'll be very useful to do that. And you can go to the help from here or from the right hand corner help, and then just type any information that you are looking for. So you can type query criteria to learn more about query criteria. And under the navigation, this is the options you will find. Like in Microsoft, for some reason, wants us to get away from switchboards. I talked about switchboards in the earlier video, and that's why they've kind of kept it hidden, because they want everybody to use this. I personally still like the switchboard, but maybe in the next video I'll talk about this part, about how to use this. But you can try doing it. It's very easy. You just start it, and then you just drag and drop the things in there that you want the buttons to do, and that's it, or the forms and things like that, and your buttons will be available. And now all you have to do is you have to go to File and Options. In 2007, the Round Office button, and then Access Options, and then just to tell it that in the current I don't see that option here, because if you remember from switchboard, you need to tell it to look for that form, but I've just got this other Excel file. And so in the display form in the current database, I'm going to tell it to use that form rather than the switchboard. So you see a form listed here, and then you just have to use that as your startup form. Alright, I'm just going to close this. Now the next thing I want to do is show you how you can run a parameter query for which you can collect the information in a form. So let me show you what I mean. So I've just created a query called query by company. So usually in a parameter query, I'll put a question here, right, with the parameters saying what company, and then I might say order date, and I might say things like between this date and that date. So if you wanted, you could actually create different fields from which you can collect those information if you want. So I'll do a simple one to give you an idea. So what I want is, I don't want to run a parameter query, but I want people to type the name of the company in the form and run the preview report option, and it will automatically create the report for me. And what I did is I also created a report based on that query. So I've already created that report. Now I'm going to create a form, but I just want a blank form. Okay. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this text box, click it one time, and I'm going to just drag it here. And this is where the information will be entered when I switch over to the form view. So I need to give it a name. So I'm going to right click and go to properties. And for the name of this, I'm just going to give it some meaningful name. So I can just call it company name. You know, whatever you want to call it, something meaningful. And then up here, I can double click on it and I can just say type company name, you know. And if you wanted, you could also create like a list box. Like if I want, I can click this and then drag something here. I will type the values I want and then create a list of different, like, you know, company, or if this was like city. So whatever you wanted, and then next and finish. So I can do it in two ways, and then here I again go to properties, right click in, and then give it a name. So up here it says list 4. I'll just leave it like that. Now I want to add a button that will open my report. So I click on it and then I'm just going to drag it here and I'm going to choose report operation and I want to preview a report. Okay. Now if you had created a macro, you can go through miscellaneous and then choose to run that macro. For now I just have a report, so I'm going to choose preview report, next, and that's the name of the report I've already created, next. And I can choose to have like a text with a button, or I can have a picture, so it's up to you. Now I come to the front end and I'm going to hit save. It says form 1. I just leave it like that. It's always good to give it a meaningful name. I'll just leave it like that for now. So now I need to tell the query that when I type company name here, it should only give me a report for company name. Okay, so to do that, in the query criteria, I have to type something like this: forms, name of the form in this section, and the name of the control name. Control name is the, in this case, this is company name. And the form 1 is the name of the form that I've given it. So whatever the name of the form is, you have to do that. I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here and I'm going to save it. Okay. Now up here, if I type, I'm typing company A and I hit preview report, now there it is, my report for company A. It only shows me company A products that have been sold. And you can always go back to the report to modify it to make it look better. I'm not concerning myself with that at this point. Okay. And the same way, like because up here it is company A, now if I run the query here, I will only get the company A results in the table because the query is looking at this form right now. So whatever is typed in here, it will look at that. So if I come back, so up here I've typed company C. Let's see if it works. Maybe I need to close it. Let me just close this and close this. I'm going to go ahead and open the form again, and if I type company C and I hit preview report, there's my company C. Close it. Now while company C is listed here, if I go to right click and go to design view, and if I run it, I only get the company C. Okay, I'm going to come to the design view. Now if I wanted to use this information, I wanted to activate this section rather than what's up here, then what I need to do is, instead of this field, it's going to expand it, it being company name, I need to have the information list 4 because that's the name, the control name of that section. I'm going to save it and close it and just close the form just to be on the safe side. Now I'm going to double click on the form, and say if I choose company A, I click preview report, and there's my company A report. And if I choose company C, preview report, and there's my company C. And if I double click on the query, then I will only get company C because it's going to run that query. There it is. There are other ways of doing this too, like I can actually, in the query, I can have the section, there's a query criteria between, and then I can have like start date and date. So this question will prompt two different questions, right? One will be a start date and the other one will be an end date. So instead of having two different questions, I can actually create a form in which I can have two different text boxes, one for the start date and one for the end date. So just to show you, I'll just create a new form just to show you that. Create form. I'll use the text box, and this one will be for beginning date. And then this guy, I can go to properties, give it a meaningful name, like I can call it start date, and I can even format it to as I want it. I can choose the format medium date or whatever you want. You can choose that, or general date, as you like it. You can choose whatever option you want to be here, or short date. Okay. And then I can add another label, and this will be end date. And again, I need to give it a name that will be like that. I try not to leave the spaces in the names, so it's easier. So then when people get to choose the date, it will run the query based on that. Okay. And just to show you, I'm going to go to the help option, and I just did a search for form query criteria in the help search, and I go to make a query, ask an input. Now I'm just going to expand this window a little bit. Now this is where you'll find all the details about different parameters query, and they also have a video that you can watch. And I'm just trying to find the information that I need. I think I'm almost getting there. It's right there. So this is what you have to put in the criteria. So that will be the name of the form, and that will be the control name that I've given it to the box. So instead of having the just start date and end date between the end, I'm just going to copy that. And then in my query, I'll be putting that there. And instead of the date range, I have to give the form. So this is called form 2. So I just have to put the word form 2 there. And again, for the remove that date range, call it form 2. So now whenever I want, I can go to this form, enter the information, and run the query. I can create a report for it and then put the button there. So this way you can take advantage of this feature, so you don't have to keep prompting for a question and people will get confused. So this way the form can do the job. So I can just close this. So I hope you found this video helpful understanding the query wizard with simple query, but you can do update, append, and delete queries. You can also find duplicates, query wizard, and unmatched query wizard. Check out the help section if you wanted to read more. And you can create forms in which you can accept information from people, and then you can run the report right from it. Thank you for watching. Hope you found it useful. Some of the elements. So in my customer list, I have these different countries, US and Canada. So say for example, I wanted to create a query by which I can move all the Canadian customers to a separate table called table CA customer. So before you do that, you need to make sure that you create a new table using the table design. Give it any field name and save it, because the query will actually replace all the fields for you at first. Okay, so I click on hello everyone, this is the 7th video in the series for Access 2007-2010, and I'm hoping that I can just add and give you some more ideas of how you can use some of the tools of Access to solve some problems that you come across. So I'm still using the same examples from the previous video, which is I just show you the relationships. So I've got customer list, I've got employee list, I'm taking orders and things like that. So it's not that crucial to understand this, because I just need to show you. So I'm looking for that, and I'm going to use the option make table. Now what this one does, what the make table does is it will delete everything that's in that table. Okay, so I'm going to click make table, and I'm going to choose that table that I want to move to. So that's why you have to have the table created. Click OK, and if I hit run, it's going to say, hey, are you sure it's going to delete everything that's in that query? I say yes. They say it's going to paste 3 rows in that table. So now when I double click here, now you see I've got 3 rows listed here. So I'm going to close it. Okay. So, but you got to be careful that you don't keep using this, because you're going to remove all of your information from that table. Now, where can this be useful? So say for example, I had a question about this, that you are into taking inventories and you are into figuring out what's missing. So you went to this location A and you did an inventory. Now a year later you go back to that location and you want to do a second inventory. So customer list, create query wizard, simple query. I click OK. I add all the fields. Because I had clicked on it, I can see it listed here, and you can always remove the fields you don't want. Click next, and I'm going to choose modify, and just for the name I'll just give something query move CA. Click finish. So in the country I can type CA, because